everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're doing well. Wanted to come on tonight for another episode of 49ers Phone. Lots of stuff to talk about. We got the 49ers free agency in high gear. We're a week in. A couple different topics we can go off of. I'm going to throw a few of them out there. I put some out on Twitter. First off, I'd like to hear what your grade is so far for 49ers free agency, where they are, what you would grade them out as. That's question number one. Heard a lot of different things about that as far as 49ers not going all in. 49ers are punting on the season. Lots of different things. So let's go ahead and we talk about that. And then also along those lines of not going all in, I want to hear from you. Who did the 49ers miss out on by keeping Jimmy Garoppolo right now? By not being able to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, which free agents are out there that the 49ers missed out on? We can have a little bit of discussion on that. The next one we'll talk about is, of course, everybody likes to talk about the quarterback. So we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo on the previous question. Let's talk a little bit about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo possibly being in the same room again in 2022. One of our regular followers here on my channel from outside of the country, one of our international viewers sent a tweet out earlier today that apparently Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance have unfollowed each other on Instagram. What does that mean? Maybe they don't like each other as much as we thought. Who knows? We'll get into that a little bit as well. Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, this is your time. This is your chance for those of you that are on your Twitter spaces that want to talk to me about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. You, the Trey Lance guys who want to tell me all about his history at North Dakota State and the history of second-year quarterbacks from North Dakota State. This is your chance to call in and tell me what I don't know or you think I don't know. Be more than happy to hear you and hear what you have to say and give my rebuttal to it. Other topics, 49ers free agency. It seems to me like when we look through what they've done so far, that they're following a pretty similar process to what they did a year ago. You know, they haven't made any big splash signings. Actually, you shouldn't say that. They have made one. They've actually been a little bit more aggressive in their spending through the first week of free agency than they were a year ago. We can get into that. The little bit about the draft and the 49ers 2021 draft, what that meant and what that likely will mean for this season. And let's also take a look at some other 49ers. Let's get into a little bit of 49ers history. I know normally on my Tuesday show that I do with Sunil is the 49ers throwback show in which we get into past topics of the 49ers, or that's kind of the direction we're trying to take that show. But I'm thinking that tonight we should take a look at the first 5 years of the Kyle Shanahan regime and compare that to the first 5 years of Bill Walsh in San Francisco. So those are some topics that we can hit, and I'll definitely go through this and chat away. But before we go too far, I do want to shout out a few folks over here in the comment section. We have Peter. He says, "Evening, Jack." Evening, Peter. It's good to have you along. Vincent Vega says, "Let's go, Jack." Let's go. I'm ready for all of you guys to call in and let me know what the 49ers have missed on so that we can take a look at it and how that would have helped them this year and possibly what it would have meant for them down the road. Sup, Jack from CarCast. I like that one. Thank you. Let's see what else we have. Let's keep rolling through real quick. I'm gonna get into some of this stuff, and I'm gonna throw up a topic in here in a minute. Cody says, "I don't think Jimmy is in the plans." I agree with Matt Mayoko when he said he doesn't believe they really had any offers. Jimmy is hurt now and missed 3.5 games last season. Not great for a bridge quarterback. I don't disagree with you one bit on that one, Cody. I think the injury obviously had to have played a little bit of a role. But also I think it does, when you look at the cost of Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe I was a little bit wrong on that one. And if the 49ers were looking to get something in the 2 range this year or what have you, that was definitely a miscalculation on my part and probably a miscalculation on the 49ers part if that's really what they've been holding out for. The question here for me that I'll ask you when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, and I understand that the cost is pretty exorbitant for a guy who might not be your starting quarterback and likely isn't going to be. For the 49ers, does he have more value to the 49ers this season with the insurance that he provides than a third round draft pick this season or next season? At this point, we're probably looking at next season, given the way that given who's left in the market. It doesn't seem like Houston's going to be a destination, although I think they would be a decent fit for him. I think they actually could win a little bit sooner than some folks believe. I think Carolina is a fit that works out well. Good defense. They have a running back there that if the running back stays healthy is really good after the catch. So I do feel like Carolina is a good spot for him to land. Carolina has the salary cap to absorb him right now and keep Sam Darnold on the roster. Or are you Carolina and you swap Sam Darnold for Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe send the 49ers a late round pick next year or a pick in next year's draft as part of taking on that cap, or maybe it's just a straight player swap, and both teams get something out of it. 49ers, have a backup quarterback in Sam Darnold who is better than Nate Sudfeld in that case, and the 49ers are able to also get a cap savings of about $10 million. So I think that would be one way of doing it. This 49er regime, we haven't seen that happen from. We've seen it happen from past 49er regimes when they had a failure with AJ Jenkins. You might remember they sent a receiver off to Kansas City. They sent off AJ Jenkins to Kansas City after his rookie season, and they got another receiver back. It wasn't any good either. Something along those lines, maybe. So, it really depends. Carolina's sitting in a prime position to get a quarterback. And if you're Carolina, do you want to go ahead and stick with it or not? So, I mean, that's where we go from there. We'll see how that goes. I mean, is Darnold worse than Jimmy, as Ekim states here? I believe so. I don't believe Sam Darnold is as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's okay. For me, when it comes down to that conversation, is the question for the 49ers is Sam Darnold better than Nate Sudfeld? And the answer to that is, yeah, I think Sam Darnold is still better than Nate Sudfeld, even though he'd be a little bit more expensive. So it's going to be that's just a little bit of the topics some of the topics we have there. And like I said, the next one, I want to hear from you. Give me your free agency grades. Tell me who the 49ers missed out on so we can go through that whole process. And then we can go from there. So we'll get into these other topics I had in a minute, but I'm going to pull up my first guest. I have that Niner guy on the line. Just let me swap this over really quick. I hate having to do this, but after what happened over on Jesse's channel a while back, got to be careful. That Niner guy, how are you doing?
Jack, how are we doing? I mean, we're doing okay, I guess. I mean, the world's on fire. Everything, we're all going to live till Sunday, so that's good.
Yes, hopefully we do. We'll see.
No, man, everything's all right. Let's see. You said grade the free agency. I think it's a solid C minus, and that might be a little too high. I mean, listen, I get why people are frustrated. I also get why the 49ers aren't going particularly all in the way people think they should. I think there's validity to both sides of the argument. Even if Jimmy was, just to say if someone traded for Jimmy, I still think there's validity for them not to go all in free agency, signing these 31, 32-year-old guys with injury histories to 5 or 6 year contracts worth $20 million. You're essentially creating the same exact problem with D4 you already have. And listen, like, I know people got freaked out about Von Miller and Chandler Jones, but can anyone bring up their injury history the last couple of years? Von Miller's missed a ton of games. Chandler Jones missed a ton of games. I mean, this year he was a little bit better on the field, but he missed a fair amount of games as well. So, it's a tough pill to swallow. I think people want to win the offseason all the time, and people have been saying that acutes to 3 more wins a year. I fundamentally disagree with that, because if that were the case, the Jets and the Jaguars would have been 6 to 10 win teams, and that's just not true. I think it depends on your core. It depends on what your cap structure is, and it depends on everything else. So I think it's a C minus, and maybe they might add a piece or two, and we'll see. We'll go from there.
Yeah, at this point, right now, it's getting really tight for them to add more pieces, and that's why I asked the question today after we had kind of a busy day today with 3 guys coming back, right? With who they brought back. I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jordan Willis and Dante Johnson, those 3 guys coming back. Plus, they still don't have Ray McLeod's numbers up. We don't know what his cap has hit is yet. So at this point, I think the 49ers are pretty darn tight up against the cap unless they've made some moves. And that's kind of why I asked the question, like, how did the 49ers get all this done today? How did they find the cap space for it? I wasn't trying to be facetious or like mock anybody. It was a serious question. So I don't really know. They might add some folks down the road. I think there's a chance to, if they're able to get a couple of extensions done. If Jimmy Ward, for example, wants to do an extension, they want to do an extension with him, or Emmanuel Mosley, if he's in the long-term plans. Those are some deals that would make sense for long-term situations. We'll see how it works out, but C minus. I've heard C minus. I go higher than that. I think it's a B minus, C plus in that range for me.
Okay. I mean, it's fair. I mean, I think that dressing corner and having 3 legit starting corners on this team is a big deal. I'm not downgrading that, but I am downgrading where I get the C minus from. It's not what they've added; it's what they've lost. It's the fact that we're going to run into another season with Daniel Brunskill starting at right guard, which is bottom of the barrel starter. He's doing a fine job, but he's a bottom of the barrel starter. We don't necessarily have a replacement for Alex Mack if he does retire. Left guard, letting Lakin walk. And then right tackle, there's no guarantee that McGlinchey's here the other year for the start of the season. And we lost Tom Compton, who at least is reliable. So that's where my grade. I think the players they've added get you a B minus, but the losses, I think, drop it down for me.
Yeah, no, I hear where you're going with that. I see, and that's where I run in. Part of the reason I disagree here is I feel like we're downgrading them because of what we don't know, and I can't speak to it that I know any better than you do at this point, or anybody else that's talking about the 49ers that's not a member of the 49ers or isn't directly in contact with the 49ers coaching staff, because we haven't seen Aaron Banks. None of the beat writers, none of the fans have seen anything from Aaron Banks outside of some walkthrough at the beginning of practice since he had his injury against the Chiefs. We've seen, because we're not allowed to watch them once they get into their actual part of practice. We basically get to watch stretching the special teams and kind of their walkthrough at the beginning when they're doing some throwing, and walkthroughs with the offensive linemen. So we don't really know. For the 49ers to let go of Lakin Tomlinson, let him walk. Obviously, there was the financial piece, but I think also they had to feel like they have a plan in place to replace him. I can understand. I can understand grading him down because we haven't seen him. I'm going to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here because I feel like from what I had seen of Aaron Banks prior to joining the 49ers, knowing that it takes some time for offensive linemen usually to get up to speed. And then also it's hard for offensive linemen to shift from one side to the next. I think that those are all pieces that went into the struggles that he had early on. And that's why it's really going to be really important to see what he can do here coming into 2022. If he hasn't proved, if he is, able to play it at the level that we expected him to, meaning myself when I looked at his college film, or what the 49ers expected him to.
Yeah, no, that's fair too. I mean, listen, I think their depth is better than people are giving it credit for. I heard you say that, and I think that's fair. I think Jalen Moore is going to end up being the right tackle now that they haven't signed a veteran yet. I think Jalen Moore is going to come into camp as the starting right tackle unless they draft someone the second pick, but at 61, which I don't. The tackle value is not there, so I don't see them doing that. Well, I mean, Aaron Banks was a bit of an overdraft, and so was Trey Sermon. But what are you going to do? It's a pass. But yeah, but I mean, yeah, but then they got McKivitz too, who I think has shown he's got the swing tackle ability. At least I know his tape against the Rams wasn't great. The result was good. We got the win, but I think when you granted the film breakdown, you're like, yeah, McKivitz, he got saved a little bit.
Yes, he did. He did. There were some definite issues there. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's and you brought up the point of Brendel too being on the roster. Although I do think the 49ers are going to draft a center this upcoming draft. I think a center who can play guard, I think, is going to be definitely one of their targets in their first 3 picks. Because I just can't see how it's not.
I agree with you. There's a couple of them that I like that I think might be there. There's one. The one is Lidstrom from Boston College. His brother is a player in the NFL. I think he plays for the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad played at Boston College as well, and so he comes from the 49ers are big on bloodline guys that have history. It seems like, right? Nick Bosa and so on. Trey Lance also is a guy whose dad had a cup of coffee in the NFL, actually with the 49ers at one point. So I think that he's one, and then the other one is the player out of the center from Nebraska, and I'm blanking on his name, and I'm frantically looking it up. If you know what it is, let me know.
I think it's Brad something. I haven't watched a lot of his tape. I watch a lot of Donovan West. I liked him a lot. I think he's going to be gone before 61.
Yeah, no. Hold on, just give me a second, and I will get that for you because it came up today on Twitter. Somebody was talking about it. And I know that I responded to him, so just give me a second to find it. Shoot, I don't think I have it. Well, here it is. It is Cameron Jurgens.
That's it. Okay.
Nebraska. That's who it is. Because of Cam Jurgens. So those are the two that I've got my on. Would be Lidstrom and Alec. It's not Alex. It's Alec Lidstrom out of Boston College, and Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. I think Jurgens is going to be later in the draft. He's probably going to be like a 4th or 5th round guy, whereas I think Lidstrom could go if the 49ers are going to go after him, I think they'd probably have to get him in the 2nd round at 61 if he's still on the board.
Yeah,
both of these guys are players that kind of fit the mold of what the 49ers look for in terms of athletic interior players. Lidstrom is extremely smart. He's put on a lot of weight since he got to Boston College. So those are some of the names that I've got in terms of for that center position. But I'm with you. They need to center, guard, whatever. Interior offensive line is one of their top priorities to bring in another player at that position.
Yeah, and there's other options too, like Dylan Parhams is a guy who's got really good tape. I don't know if you watched him yet, but I was watching his game against Houston against Logan Hall, who's a top 90 guy right now, and he kicked his ass. I mean, I don't mean to swear too much, but he kicked his ass a bit, and he was quite good. Okay. Yeah, and then I watched him. I mean, Cole Strange has been a name that I know people are freaked out about because the Niners asked him to take center reps at the Senior Bowl. He's a pretty good athletic long center. He's got the really long arms, and I know that they value that in the stretch zone and all in the zone blocking schemes. So I think that's another name too. And also the kid from Kentucky. What is his name? Luke Forsythe, I think it is.
Okay, that's a different one.
Luke Fortner. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a redshirt senior that fits in with the Niners a lot. They love those 22, 23-year-old guys in the middle in day 3, and I think he's definitely a name. I don't know how much tape you watch, Shaq, but I got a name for you to take a look at. Marquise Bell from Florida A&M. I was watching his stuff, and he reminds me of Jaquaski Tart, just literally to a T. I don't know how he ended up at Florida A&M. I think it's an interesting question. He was a pretty highly recruited guy, committed to Maryland, and I don't know what happened there, how he got to Florida A&M, but his tape was. I mean, yeah, he's playing in HBCU, but he was dominating. I mean, literally every this is a free safety who was 15 yards back at some plays, who would make plays for make a tackle a yard or two off. He wasn't blocked a lot because he got off blocks. I think he's a name to maybe take a look at. I think he's a day 3 guy who could really fit in well here.
Marquise Bell, huh?
Yeah, Florida
I'll
A&M.
take a look. Yep, I wrote it down. I'll take a look at it and see what I can find when I get some time to do that. We'll definitely take a look. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you have any names that you want to throw out as to guys who the 49ers missed out on due to Jimmy Garoppolo still being here?
I don't think they did. That's the thing. Because I think they would have got him if there was someone they really wanted. They would have got him. And then that's the one thing about Shanahan and Lynch. I think that's fair is that they'll kick tires, but if they really want someone, they go get them. They've done it before. I mean, people want to say like the Niners haven't spent big, but this is like a bigger question because San Francisco in all sports except for the Warriors, they always struggle signing free agents. It is not a secret. Like go back to like the Giants when they were in the early 2000s when I was a really big baseball fan, and there was all these star players always linked to the Giants, and they never came here. And the main reason why was because the state income tax is too high. Why do you think everyone's going to Miami? You keep more of your money. And they got a pretty good team already. I mean, that team should have been a playoff team last year. They weren't because they had just a horrendous start to the season. But they lost 6 in a row and they won 8 in a row. So I mean, it tells you that the team is actually really talented. And the AFC is going to be hard on everybody this year. But maybe they come out of it, maybe they don't. But it says a lot. Like it's hard to sign free agents here in Northern California. And this is a problem that goes across sports. It's not just the 49ers.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. That's something that both of the free agents that spoke yesterday to us stated. You had George Odom, or actually it was Ray McLeod first, and he said, he wasn't the taxes out here in California. The costs are a little bit different, and we heard the same thing from George Odom. So they're getting it. They get it. Those guys are getting hit in the pocketbook a lot harder than I am. I know that. So
yeah, no, I mean that's just but that comes down to it. So that's why a lot of players of 49ers have always re-signed, especially with Shanahan and Lynch, are guys they drafted for and guys they traded for. Now they only traded for Trent Williams, but it's still they get able to get him back because he was in the building. They got him comfortable, and then you're able to re-sign him because he already has a home base here. That's the thing. That is way more common in San Francisco sports when a team trades for someone and then re-signs them because they help them get on their feet because the middle of the season usually or something like that. But I think it's a different issue than people want to talk about because just as I think people want to just scream right now the Niners are messing up, they're blowing it, and in the Jimmy case, okay, I'll give you that, but I don't know. I'm not as I was pissed off earlier in the week, but I've kind of calmed down and realized I think. Even with the team getting a little bit worse, they're still better than most of the NFC.
Yeah, and I again, I'm going to disagree with you in that I don't feel like they're worse. I understand. I think they're better at corner, so their secondary is going to be better. That's an area that they needed to work on. Their special teams is better. Special teams was an issue that cost this team last year in ways in that the 49ers constantly, their offense, when they were getting the ball after a score from the other team, you pretty much could pencil in that the 49ers were going to start at about the 25 and in, that they weren't going to cross that. It was almost like there was the Great Wall of China was running across the 25-yard line of whatever field that when they were trying to run it, and they were just running into that wall every time. They could not get past that 25-yard line, and when you did, it was like, oh my gosh. So I think that's going to help them out. Their offense isn't going to have to go 75 yards every time that they take over after a score from the opposition. Hopefully the guys like Odom or the expectation obviously is that the guys like Odom and Burks are going to be able to step in and help solidify the special teams in terms of tackling. That's where the kickoff returns coverage team comes in, and even your punt and punt return team. So, and that's also why Ray McLeod's around. So I just feel like they've improved themselves there. I hear you 100% on the offensive line, but I'm cautiously optimistic that group's going to be better than everybody's giving them credit for. Because you'd mentioned McKivitz, having that ability to be a swing tackle, swing guard. Justin School is also coming back from injury, and he has shown the ability to do that as well. 49ers won a bunch of games with School back in 2019.
Yeah,
starting in place of Joe Staley.
They did.
And then Jalen Moore, like you talked about, and so on. So, and Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks is the question mark because he is the one of all the backups that we know right now with the 49ers. The one guy we don't know is Aaron Banks, and Aaron Banks is probably going to might have the biggest role on the team in 2022 if we do pencil him at the that left guard spot. It's going to be interesting to check out there.
No, that's fair too. I think that's a much more realistic approach than the Madden approach that 49ers Twitter has, where you just sign all the 99 overall players, and that way it's super fun. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think this team is just really freaking good, and I'm me saying they're a little bit worse. I'm just saying, like, if I gave them an overall rating last year, they were an 85. Well, I think this year they're an 84. It's not like I'm not saying they're leaps and bounds worse. I'm just saying it's a little bit of a downgrade. But this, even with Shanahan, listen, Deebo's coming back, Kittle's coming back, Ayuk's still going to be here for another 3 years. I think we're going to be okay, everybody. Just let's let the process play out.
Yeah, no, and even if they're when you look at kind of what's going on in the NFC to this point, the AFC is bonkers. The AFC is the one that everybody's going to. They're adding everything in the AFC. The NFC is pretty much staying. The 49ers are kind of staying right here. When you look at the acquisitions and things like that, the 49ers are pretty level. I don't think that they've done anything that gives them an increase. I don't think that they've really done anything that gives them a decrease. I think they've stayed pretty level. When you look at the other teams, the teams that were competing with the 49ers, for the most part, I think got worse. Had more hits than the 49ers have, at least at this point.
True.
And I think the teams in NFC that have really improved themselves are the teams that were near the bottom to begin with. If I'm looking at the NFC right now, it's the 49ers, the Rams, and the Buccaneers that scare me the most. Those are the three teams that just jump out. I think the Saints are going to be competitive because Jameis Winston is going to be he showed last year, or the Saints showed last year with Jameis Winston, that they were able to win. He was playing really good. They were 5-2 when he was around, and they cratered without him. So the Saints could be a team that kind of bounces back. The Green Bay is going to be in it because they have the quarterback.
Yeah, the Vikings defense is going to be better. Getting Zadarius Smith's going to help them out a lot. And I was also going to say, Arizona. I mean, they're talented. So, if they can kind of figure out their late season woes, they're going to be good. But in general, though, you're right, because the NFC isn't nearly as top heavy with player talent as the AFC right now. It's definitely, I'd say 7 teams who are pretty good. Of those 7, 3 or 4 being really good. And the Niners are definitely closer to a really good team, but I'm a little more cautious. I want them to show on the offensive line that they can hold up against the Rams, they can hold up against the Bucs, because the Bucs, now they got Brady back. They're losing Pierre Paul, but they have Joe Tryon, who's going to step in, and he would look pretty good as a rookie. And they still got Shaq Barrett, so they still going to have a really good defensive line.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that, and it's yeah, I agree with you. Those are all really good points. The one on Zadarius Smith, the only thing there is you got to remember he didn't play last year.
That's true. No, he was hurt a lot. No, he was hurt a lot.
I think he missed the whole season until the playoffs, or pretty close to it. I could be wrong, but I think it was like, if it wasn't all 17 games, he missed pretty darn close to it. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but I know he missed a lot of time.
He missed he missed like, I think, 12 or 13 games last year. Chandler, it was a big number.
Chandler Jones is a guy that if the 49ers had been able to pick up on the cheap, that I would have liked to see Chandler Jones come in. Mm-hmm. The one thing with Chandler Jones, if you were going to nitpick Chandler Jones, is that although he had 10 plus sacks again last year, he's been a double-digit sack guy for a long time. He only had 5 sacks after the first week of the season. He had 5 sacks in week 1, and he had 5.5 the rest of the way.
He was nicked up last year.
Yeah.
They were saying he had a back problem, and that is he had his other knee, not the one he tore his ACL on. His other knee was acting up. So
Okay.
that was the thing that I heard on Chandler Jones. That's why I was like, I'm not that crazy. We missed out on him when I heard that,
Yeah.
because I mean, he missed all of 2020.
Sure. And one of the other things that I've heard come up since I've got you on here, and there's nobody else waiting, so we might as well just keep talking.
Let's do it.
The one other thing that came up too that I've heard is, it's like, well, they have $25 million in salary cap, and that's why I asked this question: who have the 49ers missed out on? Were the 49ers going to spend that money to begin with? The thing here is, okay, so let's say, I've heard, well, they could have got Chandler Jones, they could have got this guy. They look at what those guys signed for. And you're right. They could have got those guys. It would have been, 7.5. They probably could have got 3 guys in that range, right?
Yeah.
$25 million. If Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy, they cut him. They get $25 million of new cap space. Chandler Jones, whatever 3 names you want, and they could have fit him in. And that's 100% correct. But the problem is, then you go back and you look at what their numbers are next year.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now you're like, okay, well, instead of having $80 million in salary cap next year, now I'm already down to 40 because these guys that are old are taking up this space. And so then the next part of that discussion, if we're having this discussion on Twitter, right, is, well, that's okay. They'll just extend them. Okay. Which to me is I've heard plenty of people complaining about the 49ers extending guys already.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that because you don't want to push money into the future that you're not going to have because but teams do it all the time. That's how they get there. And we all knew going into, if you followed me, at least you would have heard that Eric Armstead was going to get restructured.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. You
did.
Just
look at, and that's what happened. And I wasn't so high on George Kittle. My partner on Thursday night, Jesse Naylor, he had thrown out George Kittle right about the same time that I was talking about Eric Armstead. I wasn't as high on that one just because of the injury history, but I get it. If that's a guy that they expect to be around a long term, then you do that with them.
Well, they both guys are captains. The 49ers, like, listen, as far as like people, I mean, George Kittle was been the face of the franchise up until his last year with Deebo. He was the guy who kind of put the Niners back on the map with Shanahan when he broke the tight end receiving record. 2019, he was awesome. I mean, he literally was their go-to guy on third down. Whenever they needed a big play, it was Kittle, and then sprinkles of the run game with Mostert. 2020, even when he played very minimally, but he had good games when he played. And then last year, my problem with the Kittle take is that I feel like last year he didn't slow down. He didn't get the ball. And that was more my frustration because there was a lot. I mean, the Vikings game in particular, there was about at least one time for sure where Jimmy doesn't throw in triple coverage on the backside of Deebo. Kittle has a 30-yard gain to a touchdown. There's a couple times during the season where he's kind of running down the seam or in the middle of the field, put his arms up, and Jimmy didn't see him, or against Seattle, waited too long and threw a pick over the middle to Quandre Diggs. So my problem with the Kittle take is that I understand people are frustrated, but and he didn't get 1,000 yards this year, this glorified 1,000 yards that everyone has to talk about. Unless you're not good unless you get 1,000 yards. I just kind of laugh because, like, again, it's not an indictment of what he can't do. It's what this offense can't do. This offense can't push the ball more down. Had a hard time pushing the ball down the field more than 15 yards. And a good portion of Kittle's routes that aren't short are those deep crossers, those deep in routes that Jimmy just isn't comfortable throwing.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally fine with Kittle as the player. I believe that I don't blame him for the lack of productivity. I blame it on the quarterback.
Yeah.
He had a couple of bad plays during the season. He had a big drop in Green Bay. It ended up winning anyway. He had a bad fumble against Arizona in the home game here. But other than that, I thought for the most part, he played pretty darn good. I mean, he also had a heck of a catch in the Green Bay game after that drop too, along the sideline. So,
yeah, I mean,
George Kittle, my thing with George Kittle isn't have anything to do with the production on the field. It has everything to do with the injury piece. That's the only, I'm just concerned about it. But I mean, I don't know. You look at it in the 49ers, one of the things about the 49ers, I shouldn't say I don't know because I do. I don't know why I'm saying I don't know before I start talking. But the way that the 49ers structure their contracts of the guys that they really want to keep around long term is they give them usually, the first year is usually going to be pretty cheap, but in year
Yep.
2 and 3 and 4, it starts to become where the base salary increases because in such a manner they usually are able to keep their signing bonuses relatively low. So and they build it and they build it back up with like guaranteed salary or just salary in general that they can then. And the reason they do it is because that gives them the room to do these extensions, to do the restructuring. Because when you do a restructuring of a guy, all you're doing is you're converting base to signing bonus of some kind of a bonus, usually a signing bonus or what have you. And that's how you do a restructuring. You push that money into future years, and you're always going to pay the piper in the end. But it's something that just goes on in the NFL these days, and you're going to have to manage your way around it. I mean, it works, and so D Ford, yeah, they pushed a couple $1 million into the future on D Ford. Not a big deal. They did twice as much on that on Eric Armstead. And I bet you they do it again with Eric Armstead in a year or two.
Yeah, Armstead, that I know like his bonus structure is pretty light for the 49ers. They can kind of be moving him around and converting things into bonuses, and his contract's pretty mobile, which is that's the Parag one too right there. I mean, since he's really taken over as a 49ers cap guy, there's always mobility. The only two guys who didn't have as much mobility was Kittle because he had the big injury bonus guarantee, but Warner is a yes on that, and then Trent Williams. I don't think they can do much with the Trent Williams contract. Maybe in a couple of years, but I don't think anything recent can be done. I was kind of shocked they extended Kittle, what they did with Kittle, as far as making him a candidate for the restructure, because his number is big next year. I think it's 20 million, 20 million, and then 17.6 at the end.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. Like, okay, so I know we're kind of getting in the weeds a little bit, and we're still going and we're talking about this, but the other one, like for next year, is the player to look at that's a prime player for the 49ers to look at as far as getting a restructured deal come up next year to lower some cap money again is going to be Fred Warner. He's ripe for that. If you look at the way his contract set up, he was low last year. He's low again this year. Next year, his salary cap jumps up. The reason that jumps up is because his base salary is jumping up. They only gave him, I think, a $13 million signing bonus. So all of that money, when we talk about a $20 million a year player, was mostly in salary. So they can base salary. So that means that they have a lot of room that they can move next year if they need to. I feel like the 49ers, if you want to talk about all in or making big time moves, you might see some more of those moves next year. The first are going to have to do it next year because right now they have 20 guys under contract.
Yeah. No, I think they will too. I mean, right now I think over the cap's gone like $80 million next year, and now it depends who's going to be in free agency. But you can, I think the cap's going to progressively go up a lot over the next 3 to 4 years, not just the next 2 years.
The big cap jump is going to be in 2024, not next year. Yeah. Next year is going to be a little relatively about the same as this year, maybe a little bit more, but not much. It's going to be 2024 because the new TV deal kicks in 2023, yep. And so once those revenues are taken into account, which is how the salary cap goes, and for 2024, that's when you're going to see the explosion. So 24 is the one that's going to jump up probably a good. I don't know. It depends on what service you look at. If you're looking at Spotrac, I don't know how you say that one, but if you look at that site, they have it jumping up $70 million, $90 million over the next 2 years, but about 20 next, and the year after that, 70 because of the new TV deal. Over the cap is a little bit more conservative on their numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I looked at Spotrac too, and I'm actually working finance, so I go with the more conservative numbers.
Okay, so you're more of an over the cap. You're more of the over the cap, and I'm with you on that. It's either one, but it's definitely gonna be going up here in the future, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch how that goes. And the 49ers, like I said, they're gonna have to spend the money because first off, they only have, I think, 20 guys under contract for next year. That's minus any signings that they make now, plus their rookies that they're going to draft in a couple months and so on.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a lot of roster to fill out, and these contracts are going to be exploding. And a guy like Nick Bosa, I just saw somebody on Twitter saying that Nick Bosa, the 49ers should do everything they can to try to get Nick Bosa signed. Nick Bosa's a smart guy. His family knows how to make money. they're not stupid. They're not going to let Nick Bosa sign a contract right now unless it's blowing out through the roof because they know that if they wait until next season, that there's even more money on the table, and so you bet on yourself 1 more year. 49ers have them under control for 2 more years anyway. It's not like the Deebo Samuel situation.
Well, the thing too, I think the only team Nick Bosa is actually loyal to is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Let's be real. I mean, the Bosa family, like if you look back in a little bit of their grandfather's sketchy past, but the father, I mean, he was a first round pick. His uncle was a first round pick, so they understand the business of the NFL, and they got max dollars for Joey, and I don't think Joey's better than Nick at any point of his career. Joey's good, but I think Nick is by far a better player. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. So I think the Bosas are they're all about the bank of Bosa. Come on now, right?
I respect it, man. Hey, this world's getting more expensive. Interest rates are going up. Everybody, you get your money while you can. I don't fault. Listen, I know people. Some people have like said someone on I think it was Emmanuel Mosley's Twitter said like everyone just chasing that almighty dollar. Well, yeah, they should. I mean, these guys hit the physical lottery, and if you have a chance to make generational wealth, you do that because you may never get a chance to do it again. This game is fickle. You never know what's going to happen. So any of these guys chasing a dollar, I think that's good for them. If the team, it should be about them in a contract negotiation because you're never going to have they never have the opportunity to get it again.
Yeah, no, that's that. I agree with you that's one of the things. When fans, myself included, back in the old days, would get frustrated with a player for taking the most money that they can, right? And they're like, oh, that guy's, he's just whatever. He's all about the money. Well, no kidding, he's about the money. That's you'd be the same way.
Yeah.
If I might if I was a quarterback or whatever, and I'm making and I'm making $20 million, and I know that I'm handcuffing the team because of the way that I'm doing it. Maybe I would at $20 million a year, I might do it, just to help the team out. But as a defensive lineman or somebody like that who is dealing with that constant pounding that you do all the time and the pain that inflicts on your body and how short your career is, it's a little bit different. That's why I think Tom Brady's been able to do it as long as he has in terms of playing on team friendly deals.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Because he's also played for 20 plus years. Whereas
but it also helps when your wife makes way more money than you do, and you make 20 plus million a year. That definitely helps too.
That's a point I hadn't thought of. That's a good one right there. I like that.
Giselle is like, I think she alone, not including Tom Brady's wealth, is like in the $300 million range.
She probably tells no wonder he went back to work. She's like, what are you doing sitting at home? I'm making way more money than you. Go back to work, you bum.
Yeah, exactly. That's a high achieving family right there. Definitely a power couple.
Yeah. That's a good one. I had not even considered that for Tom Brady, but that's really good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jack. I think someone else popped in. I'll let you go. I'll let you go quickly, but I have a question for you. How much Edge have you watched as far as the draft goes?
I have, to be honest with you, as far as the draft goes, I've watched very little.
Okay.
I've watched a few guys here and there because I wanted to put together an article before the draft for the combine on some players to watch. So I looked through that. Edge wasn't one that I really spent a whole lot of time on, though.
Okay. Well, no, I asked because I'm of the belief the 49ers are probably going to take an edge with their first. I think the positions that they're going to target in their first three is probably safety, edge, and interior offensive line. I think that's probably where they're going to go with the first three from 61, 93 to 105. And no, man, I got a ton of names. But I was going to have you look at one, and I was curious. This guy, kid Sam Williams from Ole Miss. He's legit stud. But here's my question: I don't think you probably haven't looked at him yet, so you don't know. He's a really good football player, but he has a domestic violence allegation against him, and so that's what I was wondering. Do you think the Niners would ever take a shot on someone like that? Because once I heard that after I watched like 5 of his games, I was like, oh, he's probably off the board now.
I don't know. That's tough because they've tended to shy away from those players. They tried it with
Yeah.
Reuben Foster, and that was just a disaster. And since then, they really haven't gone down that road with anybody.
Yeah.
So I would think that the likelihood of that is probably less than 50% for sure.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I was thinking too. Like they haven't brought in anybody's post Reuben Foster with basically with any sort of issue. And you know what? I applaud them for that because it speaks a lot to like when because this is still a lottery. I don't care what a lot of people say about the draft. You can do all the film work you want to do, but at the end of the day, there's very minimal differences between these guys. And the biggest thing is effort and how much they care about being in the league. And you got to find guys who are not going to have extra distractions outside of this game who are going to be committed to this job. And it's just there's going to be 400 guys, including undrafted free agents. Not all of them are going to have the same commitment level. That's just how it is.
Yeah, no, it is, and the draft is a little bit of a crapshoot, right? I mean,
yeah.
You're taking your shot at guys that, on Trey Lance's case, I think it was 21. So you're taking your shot at these guys who are really young, and you're in some cases giving them a lot of money that they've never had before, and they're living on their own for the first time, and you're not able to kind of be on top of them like a college coach can, even though they're not able to be on them 24/7. So it's definitely a different beast when you get into the NFL. I think that's part of why Nick Saban wasn't around very long and went back to college so quick.
Wait, I can't control everything these guys do and eat all the time. I can't do that. I can't drop in on them on their comms class and make sure they actually showed up today. I can't do that.
Yeah. Shoot. All right. Well, I'm out of here. All right. I'm going back to Alabama. Have a good one.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Urban left too, right?
Urban Meyer's a different story altogether. But
did you read the Athletic article at all?
No. See, I don't pay for subscriptions. I'm cheap.
No, that's fair. I don't blame you.
See,
I didn't read it either. I just watched videos on it.
Yeah, no, I don't pay for subscriptions. That's one of the things that I just don't do. But that's cool because you go to the pressdemocrat.com. You can read my stuff for free. You can come on here. You get all this for free.
There you go.
And I get the donations over here and that's really all that I take from here as far as folks, helping out. But yeah, no, I don't subscribe to it, but it's good content from everything I hear.
Yeah, except for the spreadsheet guy. He's a lot.
Well, since you brought it up real quick, because I do need to get to Eric and I do need to get to the super chat over here from Blind Tom. I do need to get to that because I do notice that on Twitter they now have a super follow function that is $5 per month to super follow somebody, and I so bad wanted to go on Twitter and be like, it costs more money per month to follow the spreadsheet on Twitter than it does to subscribe to the entire Athletic, because you get the Athletic for $1 right now.
I go on that guy's videos just to troll him at this point.
Well, I mean, and here I'm gonna stop myself real quick because there's a lot of things that David says that I really agree with. There are some things that I don't, but there's a lot of things that I can see. I feel like there's times when he's giving valid thoughts or valid opinions, whatever you want to say, valid information, and people just crap all over him, for lack of better terms. Sorry, YouTube for the swear in there. But the thing I get everything. I get it because here's the other thing too. I don't like the condescending stuff, but I also realize that if you look through my Twitter, there's probably been a time or two and I've done it and I've tried to be better, but it happens.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't mind actually what he says. I mind how he says it, and I mind how he engages with people. See, that's the thing. A lot of the times he does say smart things. I'm not bagging on his intelligence level. He's not a dumb guy. You can tell that. But it's how he comes off and then how he proceeds to triple down on things. It's like, hold on, can you maybe take a bigger look at the picture, what people are trying to engage with you about? And he'll just shut it down. And that's the problem. That's the problem I have with him. Not so much what he's saying all the time, because I feel like he does add a lot of insight if you're looking for just straight how the 49ers operate and how they talk. Because he's definitely got a foot in the door somewhere there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but maybe it is what it is. So
yeah,
we'll go on. I appreciate you spending so much time with me though. That was fun.
Jack, anytime, man. You do a good job over here, man. Anything I can do to help you out? And also, if you want, I could throw you some more draft names for you to take a look at. Some guys you can do some quick vids on.
Well, shoot that over to me on Twitter if you follow me on Twitter.
I do. I'll send it over to you.
Shoot them over to me on Twitter, and I'll take a look at it because I do have Eric waiting, and then I do want to get to the super chat here from Tom because it's been sitting there way too long for me.
No, sounds good, man.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Okay. All right, let's jump really quick. Tom, I hope you're still here. I didn't forget about you because this is a really good one. And Blind Tom with the $10 donation. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. He says, Niners never do a lot in free agency. What they need is to really solidify the offensive line, either in the draft or picking off other teams' practice squads. The Niners will be fine. And I agree. For the most part, they don't. For the most part, they're not big spenders. They were big spenders in 2019. They made some big splash signings that year. They made some, they had the big trade. It wasn't a free agent signing, but it was a trade and sign for D Ford. They went in on Quan Alexander. I think it was 2018. Might have been 2019. I don't remember when they gave the big money to Jerick McKinnon. We start talking about these, how bad those big money signings were, weren't they? Quan Alexander helped them out, got benched, got hurt, I think it was, came back and played and whatever, and then they cut him the year after. Had some dead money because of it. Jerick McKinnon, boy. D Ford definitely helped him get to the Super Bowl in 2019, but it's just been rough sledding since then. So some good stuff there. But just want to jump in and say thank you for that super chat because the 49ers do spend some money in free agency. What they're doing this year is very similar to what they did last year. If you go through their transaction log from last offseason, their first big free agent signing last year was Samson Ebukam, and he was really their only big free agent signing. Not in terms of, Arden Key came later. He was the, like in week 3 or 4 of free agency. So he was down the road. So that's where we are with that. But I appreciate it. We can go through all of that in a little bit too. Really appreciate your super chat there, Tom. But yeah, just real quick, let's just run through it. So we've been through, we're now officially a week into free agency. 49ers have added Travarius Ward, Warren Burks, George Odom, Ray McDonald, Hassan Ridgeway. Those are your new players of the 49ers. They've also brought back Azeez Al-Shaair, Brunskill, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, Kevin Givens, Maurice Hurst, JaMychal Hasty, Colton McKivitz, everybody's favorite quarterback, Nate Sudfeld, Jordan Willis, Dante Johnson, and Jeff Wilson Jr. They've lost Tomlinson Jones. Those are their 2 starters that they've lost. Mostert played 2 carries last year. Trenton Cannon fumbled the ball twice on kickoff returns. Trent Sherfield was a superstar in the preseason. Made the first touchdown of the year, and he wasn't really seen from a whole lot after that. But he was definitely a good special teams player. Tom Compton was a starter down the road, in the second half of the year once Mike McGlinchey got hurt. Really good run blocker, not so hot in the pass blocking. He's a depth piece that they'll miss. And then Contavious Street, who is a nice depth piece. But when you go back through those names, Contavious Street, I think, is being replaced by Hassan Ridgeway. DJ Jones is going to be helped out a little. They're hoping that Javon Kinlaw can do it. That's a hope and a prayer because we haven't seen him be able to stay healthy. Although I did find out today that if you missed it, Big Brad on YouTube, Brad Graham, found out that Javon Kinlaw likes his squirrel deep fried like chicken nuggets. So if you ever want to know what it tastes like, what it should be like when you cook your squirrel, deep fry that son of a gun like a chicken nugget. There you go. That's what I heard today on Twitter. That was a lot of fun to listen to that. All right, so I'm going to jump in. I got another one on the line. I got 2 folks over here, so we're going to have to be a little bit quicker. Eric was on taking a little bit of time to get in here, but we're going to jump to him now. Sorry, Eric. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, so I wanted to respond to a couple of things the last caller was talking about. I'll try to make it quick though. I didn't realize there was anyone else in the queue. But
No, you're good.
all right, so towards the end, you guys, I think you were talking about David Lombardi.
Yes.
Yeah, I was following him on YouTube for a while, but I think he went too far into the Jimmy Garoppolo camp. He started to lose me. It almost got to the point where he was almost like anti Trey Lance. I mean, it went a little beyond reason, in my opinion. I think he got a little lost in the weeds of the statistics. When you're talking about a football team that's got 55 players, 11 players on offense, it's common to give the quarterback all the blame or all the credit. But, I mean, he was really getting the minutia of the statistics. And, I think at that point, when you need to really, like, dig in that deep in order to make your argument, you kind of lost to begin with. I mean, it's almost like, if you look at a painting, you look at the Mona Lisa, it's a great painting. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to go into statistics. Oh, this is how many colors it has. And statistically, this is why it's a great painting. You can look at it and you know that it's a great painting. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not a Super Bowl winning. He's not going to win you the Super Bowl. I mean, if the rest of the team wins it, he might not lose it. But, and in any event, they had already given up. They invested 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick to draft Trey Lance. There's no way that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback of the future. So why go so deep into the pro Jimmy Garoppolo camp when obviously he's not the future of the team? So,
I can't speak for him as to why. I mean, I got a lot of heat for being pro Jimmy Garoppolo, whatever, saying that he should have been the starter last year. It became people saying that I was anti-Trey, whatever. I felt like Jimmy Garoppolo gave the 49ers the best chance of winning last year, but I'll come in here right now and I tell you that I feel like the 49ers' best chance of winning in 2022 is with Trey Lance. And would Trey Lance, would the 49ers have gotten to the playoffs with Trey Lance as quarterback? That's the question that's hard to answer, right? Because we don't know. We're obviously guessing. I just have a feeling that there's a game or two in the first part of the season when the 49ers are struggling that they would have lost regardless.
I mean, they were 3-5. They were losing a lot of games early on in the season anyway.
Right. Well, and then, but I think they, it's okay. So let's say they lose one more, so another 2-6. But at the same time, and this is where my argument falls apart a little bit. I don't have a problem with it. Is you go to week 17 and they won the game, a must-win game against Houston, right? After sitting on the bench for a little while and all that kind of stuff, what have you? He played darn good against Houston in that game, especially starting with the end of the second quarter through the second half. So where my argument falls apart, where I was going with that is, although they might have lost an extra game at the first half of the year when they were at 3-5, instead of being 3-5, they might have been 2-6. They may have been able to pick up a game in the second half. And I'm thinking Tennessee as an example of a game that they might have won if they had a quarterback that just didn't throw interceptions in the red zone or miss wide open receivers down the sideline.
And also in the first 8 games, maybe they lose another one of those, but maybe one of the 5 losses might have been a win too. I'm looking at the game against the Colts where it was a bad weather game, a lot of rain, a lot of wind. If you had strong arm Trey Lance back there, I mean, you saw what Carson Wentz was doing in that game. They were just throwing the ball up and waiting for a pass interference call. So if you had Trey Lance in there, maybe, I could concede that maybe they lose another game, but maybe they also pick up another game too. For me,
that's real quick. That's a really good point, because we saw that from Trey Lance in week 17, right? We saw that from Trey Lance in week 17, where all of a sudden you saw the ball going down the field, and one of his first deep shots is a deep ball down the middle. I think it's to Ayuk, and it's a long pass interference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't argue with you.
And for me, what really swayed it was the difference in that week 17 game against Houston. You saw the progression Trey Lance made from the first half to the second half. In the first half, he looked a little apprehensive, not really sure where to go with the football. He was kind of holding back a little bit. In the second half, he just let it rip. And all of a sudden, so if he could make that much progression from one half to the next half, then I think from game to game, week to week, week 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that progression would have continued. So, but I just wanted to make that quick point about David Lombardi. I think he's gotten a little too, he's kind of like hitched himself to the Jimmy Garoppolo wagon at a time where the wagon is for sale. So why everybody knows it's not going to be around much longer. But a couple other things I wanted to touch on that your last caller was talking about. I noticed he mentioned with the draft picks how unreliable they are. I mean, look at what's going on. I think it was either like 3 or 4 years ago in the top 5 of the draft. You got Baker Mayfield taken by the Browns and Sam Darnold taken by the Jets. And by the time we reach the season, they both might be on the Panthers. So I think it's fair. Yeah, draft picks are unreliable, but at the same time, if you're going to sustain a dynasty, if you're going to build a team that's going to be able to compete year to year, you're going to have to plug those holes in the draft because you can't pay top money. I mean, one of the reasons, and that's why I'm not too upset about the way that this free agency this period has gone for the 49ers, because the way I look at it, they've already landed their top tier free agents. Their names are Trent Williams, George Kittle, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa. So you can't pay all those guys and then go out and sign Von Miller for $20 million a year and this, that, or the other thing. I like the signing of Charvarius Ward. My only issue is with Jimmy Garoppolo still on the team. That's cap space that you're not doing anything with. I mean, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback week 1, that's a disaster.
Absolutely.
You have to at some point, no matter how good Trey Lance is, you got to give him the reins and you got to see what you got and you got to see how he can develop. You cannot, I mean, I think it was a mistake to stick with Jimmy Garoppolo last year, but this year, if they stick with him, it's a disaster. So best case scenario, you're stunting the growth of your, young franchise quarterback. Worst case scenario, you're keeping him on the team as a $25 million backup, or you eventually cut him after the free agency period is over, at which point you've missed out. Now, like I said, I don't expect that they would have taken Jimmy Garoppolo's cap space and gone out and added Von Miller, but maybe with that $25 million from Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, they gave Darius Ward, I think it was like $14 million a year. J.C. Jackson got an average annual value, I think it was like $17 million a year. Either way, they could have bridged that gap with the with cap savings they got if they had either traded or gotten rid of Jimmy Garoppolo when they had the chance.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't know because we don't know. Here's the one part about it is their average annual values are different. But the signing bonus for Jackson is much higher. His salary cap stuff goes up a lot quicker. So were the 49ers looking to only get a 3-year deal instead of going long-term with a 5-year deal? That could have been also part of it, right? It's not always just necessarily about the money that we're seeing on the average annual value deal. It also is the length of time that they're guaranteed for and all that kind of stuff. So that's the only thing. I don't have the numbers in front of me to argue closely.
No, it seems like they're going more for like short-term deals, and the irony. The massive irony of that is that they're going for these short-term deals because that's when you have Trey Lance on his rookie contract. That's when you have extra cap space. You might not want to sign a player to a 5-year deal because in 3 years, if you give Trey Lance a pay raise, give an extension if things work out, then maybe that conflicts at that point. You know what I mean? So on some level, they understand that their future is Trey Lance, but yet at the same time, like I just don't see the value in holding on to Jimmy G at this point. I think that they have completely overestimated his value. Whatever they were offered last year before the draft, that might have been their best chance to trade him. Even though it's not a great draft class this year, if they were offered a second-round pick from the Patriots last year, I think they should have taken that because at this point, that's $25 million cap space. Now, another thing I actually want to ask you about this. I'm not sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. Even if they hadn't made use of Jimmy Garoppolo's cap space, if they had left that cap space on their books, they could have rolled that over into next year, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I think there could have been. I know I'm not sure how that all works out. I know there is some rollover. I'm not sure if it would have been exactly 50, what the number would have been. But they would have had some.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with them keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster last year. My problem is that we're here now. I don't even have a problem with him being here right now for him to be here. I again, like you said, I feel like this team should be Trey Lance's team.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter week 1, it's a failure or a problem, which I remember exactly how you said it. And I agree with you. And I've been saying that all week long is that I'm okay with Jimmy Garoppolo being here. I would like to see them compete. I understand that by the time a competition can begin, Trey Lance is going to have gotten all of the reps with the starters throughout OTAs and minicamp, and he's going to go in with an edge. Trey Lance should go into training camp as the starter. He should be getting all the reps as the starter. Jimmy Garoppolo would be getting all the reps as the two. If they were to do this, who knows? They'll probably not even. It might not even get there. It may. If that happens though, and Trey Lance doesn't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a problem.
Yeah,
and it's a different problem than what.
Because the problem is the argument's not the same. Last year, the argument was Trey Lance only played one game in the last 2 years. He missed the year of COVID. He played at Division 2. He doesn't have enough experience. We need to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay, I can understand that argument. I would have gone in a different direction, but I can understand that argument. But the problem is, if you apply that argument this year, oh, well, Trey Lance isn't ready. We got to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, now the problem is you had an entire season with Trey Lance. Why is he so unprepared that he can't? We're not talking about replacing Joe Montana here. We're talking about replacing Jimmy Garoppolo. At that point, I think if you apply the same argument from last year to this year, that's a bit of an indictment on the coaching staff. Well, you basically shelved the guy the entire season. You didn't even, early on you were sprinkling in plays for him, but you stopped that. The only times that he got starter reps was when Jimmy Garoppolo was injured. So if it's the same argument this year, I think that goes against the coaching staff, because that kind of shows like, well, you didn't put any effort to develop your rookie quarterback.
Well, whatever it is, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback this year because he's better than Trey Lance or whatever the coaching staff feels, whatever it is, it's a problem. It's a problem because of what they invested in Trey Lance, and it's a problem with the coaching staff. It's a problem in a number of different ways.
I mean, I almost can't believe that we're even talking about it at this point. You would think with the way that conventional wisdom has been in the NFL lately, that it would be obvious. Okay, you draft a rookie, you put them in, and you start building around them.
No, totally. I think that the thing for me, and I will finish it off with this, is that I think that Trey Lance got some benefit out of everything that he went through last year, seeing everything from the sidelines, get into a game at the end of the season. He got into a game early on in the season. He got into a game in a must-win situation. He was successful in one, not so much in the other. And the one that he didn't win can't even blame it on him. There was a lot of things that went along with that, which happens with every quarterback when they lose games. Mostly, it's usually not always their fault. Most of the time, sometimes it is. But if that game wasn't on Trey Lance, and he saw everything that you could possibly see this year other than a Super Bowl. He saw what it was like to work with the media and work through that entire process. If you remember, meeting with the media is a pain in the butt for a quarterback, for coaches and players and everything else like that. And you might remember throughout most of the season, Trey Lance did not meet with the media. There was a couple, I think before his week 5 start, they let him come in and do it, but it wasn't on the normal day of the starting quarterback. Same thing in the week 17 game. But after that week 17 start, Trey Lance talked to the media every week. It wasn't on Tuesday when the quarterback normally talks. It was on Wednesday, but he was still talking to the media. Again, getting him ready for next season when he's got to go in there and face all of our ugly mugs on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and go through that process. But he got to do it without having to play in the games. I feel like what the 49ers did is going to benefit him as long as he can put it on the field, and we'll see that in 2022.
It'll benefit him as long as he gets to take over this year. I think otherwise, then
the only way he doesn't is if he's not good enough. In my opinion, I don't think the 49ers roll the ball out and just give it to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, because the other issue is with that rookie contract. You want to, when your quarterback isn't making $50 million a year, you want to try to take advantage of that opportunity. You want to maximize it. So every year that you have a rookie quarterback on the rookie contract and you're not, making use of that extra cap space, I think that's a bad decision. I think you're putting your team at a disadvantage.
Okay. Here's the last thing on that. Because you're right in terms of I hear this a lot. I hear it from you're not the only person I hear it from. I hear this comment a lot about taking advantage of the rookie salary, the rookie quarterback deal. In Kansas City, they have a quarterback who got, at the time, was it $40 million a year in Patrick Mahomes when he got his extension, right? But has Patrick Mahomes ever taken up a huge portion of the salary cap for the Chiefs? No, because although he got a big signing bonus, his signing bonus was where the majority of the money was. He continually rolls over the salary cap, the salary portion of it continually gets rolled into revised deals, and that's so the 49ers have time with this thing. And I know that the argument is that down the road it's going to hurt him, and by the time it hurts him, the 49ers, if Trey Lance is what they think he is, they're going to.
But then why did the Chiefs just trade Tyreek Hill then?
Who knows? Tyreek Hill's older though too. Tyreek Hill is coming off a season in which you saw his yards per reception, his yards per touch, and his average depth of target all drop. They were the lowest totals this year in 2022, 2021. They haven't been that low since 2016, his rookie year in the NFL.
So and he just got a $30 million a year contract from the Dolphins. So you're saying maybe the Chiefs just calculated that he wasn't going to be worth $30 million a year for the next 4 years?
Or 5 years, whatever. I think was it a 4-year deal with him?
Yeah, 4-year, like $120 million.
So it could be. He's at year 5. Who knows how much? Speed guys are different. These guys are all different. Is he going to still be the same deep threat kind of guy? Who knows? The other piece on that, real quick, is that cap number that contract is actually closer to $24 million when you actually start to look at it and get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Well, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say that with what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo, it just feels like a missed opportunity. Like I said, even if they didn't sign anyone, they could have used that maybe to extend Deebo. I just feel like that's dead cap space as long as he's on the team. That's not he's not going to be a starting quarterback. That's even if you just took that cap space, rolled over in next year, maybe you pay a little bit extra. So instead of getting Tre'Davious Ward, you get J.C. Jackson. I don't know what it is. They seem like they're allergic to turnovers. Like it's almost like a point of pride. Like, oh, we're going to prove that we can play defense without getting turnovers. We do not want anyone in our secondary that can catch the ball. No. No. We're gonna show you. We're gonna be a bend and don't break defense. We cannot, create any turnovers. Which to me, I'd like to see a ball hawk back there. I mean, if you got a good pass rush, that's going to cause the other team's quarterback to throw some bad passes. You pick those off, it's a game changer. So I don't know. That's the only point I wanted to make was I just feel like they're getting no value out of having Jimmy Garoppolo, and whatever else they could have done with that, whether it's upgrade a couple of the lower level free agents to maybe mid-level. Maybe you signed one big splash guy like Chandler Jones or Von Miller or something like that. Or even if you just use that cap space to extend Deebo or roll it over next year, I can see the value in all of those things. I just don't see the value keeping Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. You're not going to get a first-round pick for him. I mean, Baker Mayfield might be a backup next year.
That's the way it's trending.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Eric. I appreciate you making the time to call. You have some really good points and definitely fired up. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for taking my call. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
You too.
All right. Let me go there. Hey, Rich, are you here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. How you doing?
Good, Jack. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem. What's going on?
So, what's that?
I said no problem. What's going on? What do you like to talk about?
So just a couple of things. First and foremost, I think that you liking Jimmy last year wasn't really my beef with you. It was the fact that you wanted to pick Mac Jones over Trey Lance. So, that was the only thing I was like, come on, Jack, you can't really want Mac Jones over Trey Lance, man. But
I still feel like that was the for me, without what I look for in quarterbacks and what I think fits with the 49ers, I feel like Mac Jones would have been really good. Now, the part of the Mac Jones over Trey Lance too was wanting them to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo too. Was having a guy that was going to come in year one and play. But
I get it.
That's okay.
But so with the Jimmy Garoppolo thing, I think what bothers me the most, and I still feel that Jimmy's not going to be on this team by the time training camp starts. Okay. If you just look at all the moves that the 49ers have made, like immediately after the season ended, all the coaching movement that they've made, it appears that the coaches that they've hired and brought in have been geared towards a style of offense designed for Lance. And then on top of that, you sign your backup to a $2 million guaranteed contract. Who pays if you were planning on having Jimmy here at the beginning of next year, who pays a third string quarterback $2 million guaranteed? That just doesn't happen.
Right.
So their plan is not to have Jimmy on this roster at the beginning of the season. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made those moves.
I can understand that. You're probably right that that's the direction that they're going to go.
Yeah, I really feel like I think they overplayed their hand in the trade market. For whatever reason, they thought things were going to happen a certain way, and it didn't. I feel like what's going to end up happening is they're going to wait till Garoppolo is cleared, and they don't have to pay that $7.5 million bonus for injury, and they're just going to release him outright. That's how I feel it's going to happen. This whole idea of him being on the roster and the $25 million that he's eating up, that doesn't bother me because, one, this team has never really spent huge in free agency to begin with. And two, it's not like this team was devoid of talent. We're not the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're not the Houston Texans. This team still has, like 5 or 6 players that are basically like top 3 in their positions. You add to the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo won't be on this team. Trey Lance will definitely be an improvement as far as talent level. We'll see how he is with decision making and things of that nature. But I think we saw an improvement with I saw enough of an improvement in the Houston game with the decision making that I felt comfortable with him. And I think just having that improvement with him will help the 49ers get over the hump. I think people when they talk about, first of all, spending a bunch in free agency, that doesn't always work. We see teams overspend in free agency and they don't make the playoffs or they fall short in the playoffs. Have fun with that. If you want to overspend. Or if you're overspending, it's more than likely you're a bad team like Jacksonville. I mean, Jacksonville spent all that money at the very start of free agency. And so I don't think our team hasn't improved. I think that they've been very selective with the signings that they've made.
Yep.
And I think that's for a particular reason. I would count 4 games last year that we lost by special teams alone. Now, I will say this. The only thing that really worries me about our special teams improvement, for all the improvement we've made on special teams, the one thing that still scares me is our punter. Because after the first half of last year, our punter was terrible. And I don't know if he had the case of the yips, but the first half of the season, he was good. He had a Special Teams Player of the Week award, but for whatever reason, he just started punting like pooch punts, and he couldn't get the ball to the end zone, and it was terrible. So I hope he improves this year, but if he doesn't, I'm a little worried about our punter.
No, I hear you. That was a little bit of an issue at points last year. There were definitely some questions around Mitch Wishnowsky that there might be some issues. Man, this thing's turned. We've got from Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance to Mitch Wishnowsky hate. No, I'm joking with you. I'm joking with you. But yeah, no, you're right. No, you are right though. There was a period of time. He had some good games, but there were also some issues with the special teams in terms of Mitch Wishnowsky and the punts and the punting portion that he's his part of it.
Yeah, and the final 2 things. One, I think that I keep hearing, and you brought it up with the last caller about taking advantage of Trey Lance being in his rookie deal, right? But if you look at teams in general, most of them don't start spending big until that rookie contract's 3rd year, really. Look at Justin Herbert. He's in his third year, right? Lamar Jackson. All these guys, they didn't really spend big in free agency until basically the third year of their contracts. So to say that we need to take advantage of his rookie deal, and I think you hit it best. Mahomes' deal still is still team friendly. I mean, it's as big as the contract we saw. I think people look at this number and they forget how football numbers work. It's not all guaranteed. So, for instance, that contract, right? The contract that Tyreek Hill signed, it's only $72 million guaranteed. So, like you said, it's closer to $24 million a year guaranteed than the $30 million everyone throws out there. So, I think that we're going to be okay. It's not Chicken Little. The walls aren't tumbling down. But the one thing I am a little concerned about is the Deebo Samuel thing. And, I know before the whole trade Deebo thing started blowing up and getting talked about, I put out on Twitter, I think Deebo would get traded before Jimmy Garoppolo, and but it kind of worries me with all these wide receivers getting signed. There's still some wide receivers that are going to be signed. AJ Brown still has to be signed or get extended, I should say. So it kind of worries me about the price that the 49ers have in mind signing him, and whether or not he's adjusted what he believes is his value, and whether or not that contract is actually going to come to fruition. And I won't worry about it until right before training camp, because that's usually when the 49ers sign these extensions. We saw it with Kittle, we saw it with Warner. But it does make me wonder if Deebo Samuel's thought process has changed about his value, and whether or not that's going to throw a hinge into the negotiating process.
Yeah, it definitely. Well, I mean, based off of his social media posts, it seems like it has, right? I mean, based off of his social media posts, it seems like he's enjoying what he's seeing on the free agent market right now. So, do the 49ers let him continue? Here's the question: do the 49ers just make him roll out there this year and then come back next year and franchise tag him and play Nick Bosa on the 5th-year option and wait until 2024 to give them new deals? I mean, the 49ers have control over these guys for the next 2 years in different ways.
Yeah, and I'm of the mindset I would just pay him. Only because the simple fact is that next year the cap is supposed to go up about another $26 million. So you might as well do it now before you're paying an extra $10 million a year for his services next year, because that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, if he has another year like he had this year, he will definitely reset the market. So you might as well give him the value that he is now, and just call it a day. Because if you wait till next year, and I really want him to get his back, because I love Deebo Samuel, and I really, he's kind of the heart and soul of this team, and he puts it out there for this team, week in, week out. So I'd hate to see him gone, but I also want to see him paid. So
yeah, no, he deserves his money. He definitely deserves his money, and he's a terrific player, and he's like you said, I think you said this, but he's like, he is the heart and soul of the team. The way that he plays, he is this generation's Jerry Rice so far. He just needs to stay healthy. He really is.
Yeah, I agree.
I know that's a little crazy.
Come on and oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, I know, putting him in the same breath as Jerry Rice is crazy. Okay, but when you look at what his numbers that he put up this year compared to Rice's in Rice's best year, the numbers are similar. I know it's not all on the receiver because more of it's as a runner, but their total yards per for the season and per game and everything, it's awfully close. It's the second best in 49er history. So Samuel was pretty darn
absolutely. If
impressive.
He can keep this pace. Yeah, you're right. So, well, thank you, Jack, for letting me come on. I appreciate your time, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
I will. I will. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate you having the patience and calling in. Thank you very much.
Oh,
All right.
all right. Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right, we're going to jump over. We got another one. We're just going to go straight through into this one. I've had I've seen Jay a couple of times in the comment section in the past. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. It's Wednesday night. It's all downhill after tonight, getting towards the weekend.
Yes. The reason I called was, the thing about your previous caller saying about Deebo's contract. That's just the way the NFL is. I mean, a contract that when Jimmy Garoppolo got when we first signed him was on ESPN, and all the channels were saying, "Oh my God, 27 million. What are we gonna do?" And now it's nothing. So I think sign Deebo, it's gonna be the same situation. Whatever contract he gets, if he gets a 20, 25 million, 30 million, whatever it is, 2, 3 years from now, it's gonna be a bargain. And so I think that we need to sign him. We need to get him and get him the extension, whatever we need to do, and just get him signed, because we don't want to disgruntle Deebo. We want him focused. We want him ready to go. We want him to not be worried about a contract, because Trey, if Trey is a starting quarterback next year, he's gonna need him. He's gonna need Deebo. He's gonna need Deebo, and he's gonna need start to really rely on him. We can't rely on Ayuk, even though I think he's doing a good progression as far as getting to the next level where he needs to be. I really like Jawan Jennings, so I think we're okay there. The thing that really bothered me was Laken Tomlinson and DJ Jones. I mean, DJ Jones, we needed him to stuff the run. And at the beginning he was okay, but he came on, he really played well at the last 6, 7 games of the year. And also Laken, he was always there. Since we got him from Detroit, he was Mr. Reliable. He never missed. He wasn't like an all-pro, even though I thought he had a couple of all-pro seasons. But how do you replace that? Like, my theory is always like what Bill Walsh used to do. He would let go of guys, even though, if it could be Rice, Ronnie Lott, he would get rid of them little before they got older. But he always had somebody ready to step in. I don't know if that's the way we should do it nowadays, but I don't know. I don't know about that. But Tomlinson, I know he's just Mr. Reliable. And are we all in with Banks? Is Banks going to be the guy that comes in? And I don't know if you remember when we signed Alex Boone, when we drafted him, the first year he was all sloppy. He was out of shape. He wasn't interested. Then in the offseason, he showed a vast improvement, not only in his physique, but in his mental approach to the game. And is Banks going to be like that? If Banks is going to be like that, then yeah, I'm all in. I'm confident. And the other thing is Mac. Is Mac going to come back? Because if Mac doesn't come back, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then our right tackle. So all that, and then with Trey Lance, he needs all the protection possible. So that's kind of what is on my mind. And as far as free agency, I think we did a good job addressing the special teams. We had to because that was just terrible last year. And one thing I was going to ask you, what do you think if Jimmy is gone? Let's just say he's gone.
Sure.
Would it be feasible to try and sign Johnny Hekker, the all-pro punter from the Rams, not only to hurt the Rams, but to improve our situation? Because Wisnowski, man, I don't know. I know he's got one more year, but what do you think?
I see where you're going on that one. I don't know. I think I see. There's Hecker's a guy who he's I don't know if he's been super impressive over his career. But I'm hold on a second. I'm just going to pull this up. Mitch Wisnowski. He's let's see where he is. He's right here. A little over $1 million, so he's just over the minimum. I don't know how long that he has left on his deal. He's entering the final year of his deal. I mean, you can move on if you want to bring in another punter to compete with Wisnowski or something like that. Then maybe go ahead and do that because you can move on from him and save $1 million. That would go to another punter. It's kind of just a lateral move, but do you move on from Wisnowski at this point, or do you let him play out his last year here? I could see maybe them taking a peek and bringing him in and give him a tryout. Give him a peek and see what you can do. As far as the offensive line, I'm a little more bullish than others. I feel like this offensive line has some depth. I feel like Trent Williams is the anchor at left tackle. The question mark for me, if Alex Mack comes back, I feel like it's going to be a good unit. If Alex Mack doesn't come back, that kind of gives you a little bit more flux because now you're stuck without your starting center from last year, and you're going to have to. Jake Brendel's the only other guy on the roster that's been a center that would step in. Don't really know enough about him because we haven't seen him play. But if they came out and they had Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill, and Jalen Moore as your starting offensive line week 1, I would be cautiously optimistic. I wouldn't feel worse about that offensive line than what they put out week 18.
And the thing about Banks is that he has going. I saw him at Notre Dame. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and even before Joe Montana. But anyway, Banks, he was a great run blocker at Notre Dame. They had a great running attack when he was there, and so I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about the pass protection. It's a big jump from Notre Dame to the NFL. You don't have Aaron Donald playing against you. So absolutely. That's the only thing that worries me. But any word on Mac? Like, are they just waiting? Is he not contacting them, or what is your feeling? Your gut feeling is Mac gonna come back?
My gut feeling is that Mac's going to come back. I don't know. The last time that the media talked with John Lynch was at the Combine, and at that point he told everybody that they'd been in contact with Mac and they feel good about that situation. Now, what does that mean? It's up for interpretation. Either they feel good that he's going to come back, or they feel good that they know that he's going to move on and they have a plan in place to replace him. But beyond that, there's no definitive answer.
So you would think that we would maybe target a guard center or a center, maybe third, fourth round in the draft, and also just one thing on the draft, just real quick. In a second round, would you go safety or edge rusher? I like Petrie from Baylor. He looks pretty good. Or that guy Cook from Cincinnati. He's a pretty good tackler, very solid. Or maybe edge, go with I like that Cam Thomas from San Diego State, or Pascal, or even Benito. Those guys are pretty good. But what do you think as far as the second round? Do you think we go safety or?
Well, when it comes to if we're looking at safeties, Cook is the name that I've paid attention to that I think would be a good fit for the 49ers there.
Yeah, he's good.
Would be Cook. If you're looking at offensive linemen, like I was telling the caller earlier, when you're looking at centers, for me, it's Alec Lutstrom from Boston College. I think he's probably the number 2 center on the board. Okay. So I think you'd have to get, but who knows, centers sometimes tend to fall a little bit. And then Cam Jurgens out in Nebraska is somebody that I haven't seen a whole lot, didn't read a whole lot about him, but I know from people that have been were out at the Combine. I was talking to Jordan Elliott, who's on Twitter, Splash used to be Splash Cousin. Now he has a different handle. I can't remember it, but he was out. He was one of the 49er content creators that was out in Indy for the combine, and he's big on Cam Jurgens. So he kind of sold me on him a couple weeks ago when I had him on the show.
Well, that's good. But I think we're going to do well. I think having the 2 third rounders is pretty big. I think there's a lot of depth in this draft because I think there's a lot of edge rushers. There's good offensive linemen, good running back. Do you think we'll get a running back, or what's the deal with Trey Sermon? You think is Trey Sermon just not fitting in? Is it his personality? His work ethic? What have you heard anything on Trey Sermon?
I think the issue with Sermon is more of a it's not a personality thing. It's more of just a level of play. It's in the NFL from what the coaching staff said, what Mike McDaniel said at the end of the year. It was about being tight to the hole, not just like running your path, but running the path correctly, not kind of getting too far outside. Because in the NFL, everything happens so fast that if you're not right off that hole, you're kind of veering a little bit. You might get a half of a yard instead of a 2-yard gain.
Yeah.
So I think that's more of their issue with Sermon is getting him. And Sermon also is a guy who, when I watched him in college, he had some impressive tape, but it was his good tape was when he played the whole game and he was being fed the ball and it was a number of carries. It wasn't just spot carries here and there. So I think they expect some things more out of him this year. I think he might have. They're hoping that he learned his lesson. I do feel like the 49ers are going to take a running back in the draft this year, though. Right now they only have 4 running backs. I think they're gonna maybe look for somebody to compete with either Jermichael Hasty or Jeff Wilson Jr. for the last spot.
Okay, well, thank you, Jack. I gotta go.
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you have a good night, and you stay blessed.
Oh, thank you very much. I will. You have a good night as well, and I really appreciate you watching the show and calling in. Really
problem.
Appreciate it.
No problem, Jack. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay. All right, real quick, I was gonna wrap the show up, but I got another guest that I can't go by without talking to this guy. It's been I don't know if I was on the show last week or not, but Korean 49er, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jack. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. What do you want to yell at me about tonight?
Yeah, I don't yell because in our family, all the male voices, when we start yelling, we sound like angry male lions. So we'll just don't want to. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
So,
what's up? What's on your mind?
I think by keeping Jimmy, I think this front office lost an opportunity to do one of 2 things last year. They could have loaded up by getting a really good player, number 12, i.e. Rashawn Slater or Micah Parsons. I believe they both made the Pro Bowl as rookies, if I'm not mistaken. They were right around that number 12 pick. I believe Dallas got Parsons at 12, I believe.
And why are you saying that again?
Because they could have done one of 2 strategies. They could have said, hey, let's just say we're going to keep Jimmy and get a really good pick at number 12, because that was still a very high pick. And you could have still gotten an impact player at that position.
Okay. But you realize they got Trey Lance, right?
I understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
What they did was what they did. But then my second thought is the front office should have done what the Colts did when they got the number 1 pick and selected Andrew Luck, because Peyton Manning said, you can't keep me if you draft Andrew Luck. You have to cut me because you have to play Andrew Luck, which is what I believe happened that year when the Colts got the number 1 pick that following year.
Yeah, I've heard I'm gonna just go back though. I've heard the Micah Parsons thing, and the other guys. I've heard that thrown around the last couple of days, and I disagree. I understand I understand you're going to get more out of Trey Lance in the long run than they're going to get than the Cowboys are going to get on Micah Parsons, and the other name I'm not sure who you brought up.
Rashawn Slater.
Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater's a really good offensive lineman. I really liked him at Northwestern. The dude was a stud, and in the film that you saw of him at Northwestern showed up last year with the Chargers. So I really like of those two. Rashawn Slater is a better football player than Micah Parsons, but also when it comes to the 49ers are going to be okay. They're going to be better off with the quarterback that they chose. He's going to be. We're talking right now. I've tried not to bury to just end this entire conversation of this entire offseason because you got to have something to talk about for the next 6 months. I'll tell you right now, none of this matters if Trey Lance is the guy the 49ers expect him to be. If Trey Lance is the guy the 49ers expect him to be, none of this arguing and throwing up your hands and everything else that everybody's doing, I'm not saying you, but just in general, the stuff that we're seeing is going to matter because the 49ers were a quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl last year. Their team, they've lost almost nothing. They've lost a little bit. Right now, as it stands right now, they've lost 2 starters. 2. And people are losing their minds. They've lost 2 starters. They've added 1 there, and the quarterback's going to be in flux. But if Trey Lance is the guy that everybody thinks he is, and Trey Lance is the guy that everybody's been yelling at for the last year, none of this matters. So,
agree with you, Jack. We're not. I believe we're
and
on
I'm
the
not
same.
arguing with you.
I believe we're on the same page, maybe on different parts of the page, but I think we're at least, in the same ballpark. My thing is with the injury to McGlinchey, I thought there was a chance to get like a Lyle, I think it's La'el Collins, or I don't know how they pronounce his name, but the former right tackle for the Cowboys, since I believe he may not be coming back this season or at all, because depending on how that injury eventually may or not heal up for McGlinchey. And I thought that was a chance to optimize at least that position because following the 49ers draft patterns, they usually not been able to find starting caliber linemen outside of, getting a Trent Williams type. So that's where I was coming from on that one.
Sure. I mean, and La'el Collins God, I wish they had his numbers up here because then we could talk about it. But La'el Collins is a guy who I agree with you. If the 49ers could have picked up La'el Collins, I would rather have La'el Collins over as my starting right tackle instead of Mike McGlinchey. I just wish I could see what his numbers are. I know he had a big contract, but the numbers aren't populating yet, at least on that one site that I normally look at. I could, and the only reason I said is because La'el Collins, the 49ers could have maybe fit him in this year without Jimmy Garoppolo, but does he fit their team long term? Maybe. Maybe the money that you're wasting on Mike McGlinchey could have been, that you would be spending on Mike McGlinchey. It's maybe the addition of whatever La'el Collins cap hit in 2023. I keep forgetting what year we're in. It's getting so crazy. If it's 2023, maybe it's only going to be $5 million a year more than Mike McGlinchey. And maybe, and probably La'el Collins, I would be hard pressed to argue that he's not worth $4 to $5 million more than Mike McGlinchey. So maybe, I mean, I hear you.
I mean, that's one position where I see they could have definitely upgraded because I have 3 other questions on the offensive line because I don't see, because to me, if Alex Mack is really thinking about retiring and John Lynch believes he knows where that may be going, I think he's already 1 foot out the door towards retirement. I mean, who knows? Like, he could come back for 1 more year and still play very well, but I really don't want to bank on that. And then I have 2 other positions. I don't think Brunskill may be serviceable, but I think they could upgrade him at right guard. And if Aaron Banks can be at least a solid left guard, I would take that too.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're making some good arguments, and without knowing all the particulars again, like I said, here's the thing with the 49ers. The 49ers have built this team. They've built a team that I think is better than people believe. They They were in the Super Bowl in 2019. Quarterback played a role in helping them get there during the regular season, not so much in the postseason. They were a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl. They were a quarterback away from winning the NFC Championship game this year. They were a quarterback away from winning in 2020. If Jimmy Garoppolo, and what's funny about 2020 is if Jimmy Garoppolo had not been hurt and had played that whole season, that 2020 team, even with all the other injuries, is in the playoffs. I think. You go back and you look at the games that they lost because of Nick Mullins' turnovers. The 49ers under Jimmy Garoppolo, they beat Washington that year. That's the game that jumps right off the top of the page to me. There's some other ones as well that completely flipped. Dallas is a team that the 49ers probably beat in 2020 if it's Jimmy Garoppolo instead of Nick Mullins playing quarterback. The way that game played out against Seattle in Week 17, that's another win for the 49ers if it's not CJ Beathard. You just go through those games and you look at how those games played out. I know Jimmy Garoppolo has his issues, but he has so much than those two guys when you really get down to it. Again, that's why I lean back and I'm sorry to shut down the conversation because that was rude to me, and I'm not. I'm just saying this thing, everything goes. All this, if it comes down to it, if the quarterback plays the way that the quarterback's expected to play, they're going to be fine. They were, Aaron Banks is the question mark. Daniel Brunskill, you know what you're going to get. Alex Mack, I wouldn't be worried about him if he comes back. You see, because you see these guys that are vets that are, mulling it over, who are able usually to get through. I mean, look at wasn't there somebody out in Tampa Bay that retired that came back? Didn't Ryan Jensen, or maybe they signed him up as a free agent? I don't remember.
Yeah, they re-signed him.
Yeah, but I think this team's a lot better than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah,
but
I think I just have some little bit of hand wringing over some of what they're doing, because to me, I think they could have. To me, you're going to try to fill one of several needs with a second round pick, but still, you're still going to have several of those holes that you may still need to fill throughout. You're banking on them hitting on all their picks to fill up all the holes from whatever they have from last season, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, but we're only looking at two holes. We're looking at left guard, right tackle. I guess that's two. Defensive tackle, Javon Kinlaw is going to give you more as a pass rusher than DJ Jones. He's not going to give you the run defense that you get out of DJ Jones, but he's going to give you the pass. The first pass rush is going to be just as good this year as it was last year. Maybe improved.
Who do you see as
good.
And that's fair. Who do you see as the opposite of Nick Bosa for pass rusher? Because right now I'm not too sure on that. Because I think Jordan Willis is more of a, come in, to spot Bosa on occasion, but I don't see him as a starter for next season.
If I was drawing up their starting defensive line right now, it's Nick Bosa on one side, it's Samson Ebukam on the other side, it's Eric Armstead in the middle, and it's Javon Kinlaw on the other side, inside. That's how I see their defensive line playing out when it comes to the starters. And then you start getting into the rotation, and you have Kevin Givens and you have Kevin Givens, you have Hassan Ridgeway, you have the Arden Key is a piece that they lost, but I think the expectation is that Charles Omenihu, who came on last year after he joined the 49ers in the trade, is going to fill the role of Arden Key as that interior pass rusher in your pass rush downs and in your nickel and dime situations. And that Willis will be kind of your backup. I don't know which side he lined up under. I don't remember if he was on Nick Bosa's side or if he was on the opposite side last year. I think that's how the defensive line is going to work itself out. Linebacker group's going to be solid. It's the same guys coming back. The cornerbacks are going to be better. Safety is a little bit of a question mark with Jaquowski Tart. I probably don't expect him to come back, but there might be a little bit of drop off there early on. Depends on what they decide to do in the draft. And I know that people laugh about Dante Johnson coming back, but Dante Johnson started 2 of the biggest games for the 49ers this year. They won.
Yeah, Dante Johnson wasn't a huge liability. There was a little bit of a drop off, but it wasn't Wile E. Coyote going off the cliff. Chasing a roadrunner.
Yeah, absolutely. No, no, totally. But that gives them. See, the thing with Dante Johnson is that gives you now you have a pretty good group of competition amongst Johnson, Lenore, maybe Mosley to figure out who you're going to put into the slot. Depending on what they do in the draft, maybe they draft another quarterback to compete in that area. Maybe they find somebody on the free agent market towards the end of free agency here in a couple of weeks that they can throw into that spot. So I don't know. I just feel like this is the team that won 10 games last year that struggled out of the gate, played at a high level throughout. I think they're looking at themselves as the team that finished out 9-2 to finish the year out or whatever it was, between the regular season and the postseason. If they come out of the gate starting off and the quarterback plays the way they expect, I think they'll be okay.
I just think that they could use someone who could get more takeaways because the pass rush did its job, putting a lot of pressure and getting sacks. But watching that, I just think they could also get the 2-for-1 and get another defensive back that could get, a few more interceptions for more opportunities at scoring points. Because I felt if you could do that, you could take a little bit more pressure off the defense and, I don't want the defense to be like the 85 Bears defense and only give up 13 points. I don't think it's fair to them to, have to play lights out, play like the 85 Bears did.
And they won't. They wouldn't anyway, right? I mean, that defense is gonna be a little bit different this year, but teams change. Like I said earlier, even if the 49ers, even if you want to say that the 49ers haven't gotten better, they've stayed level more than the teams that were around them, right? The offensive line questions that people are saying about the 49ers, anybody pay attention to what happened to the Rams?
They lost Whitworth.
Yeah, they lost their starting left tackle, right? I mean, they're losing a tackle too. Tampa Bay got Tom Brady back, right? So everybody just kind of figures Tampa Bay is going to be right back in it. And I think they kept most of their guys. So, I mean, the NFC, if the 49ers were in the AFC, we'd be having maybe a little bit different discussion. I think the 49ers have done a good job. They've improved their secondary a little bit, at least kept it the same, because they don't need to have those 2 high safeties all the time to help out the cornerbacks to keep them in line, right? You're getting Ward to seal off to beat. They're looking for Ward to be Richard Sherman in 2019, really, right? And what I mean by that is the guy that kind of shuts down one side of the field, and then you have the other guys. Everybody kind of works the other way. I think that's what they're trying to do there. I think they're going to be better. We'll see, but let's talk about this a little bit more because I do need to jump off.
Yep, not a problem, Nick. We'll talk about this a little bit more next time. Thank you.
Hey, I like it. No, I'm glad you called. I do like debating with you because you push my buttons, which I appreciate. It's fun. We have a good time talking. So
yeah, I never hold it personal. So
absolutely, no, I didn't mean it at all in a personal way. I'm just talking about just in general. So
it's fun discussion. Outside of my 10 hours of work of being an engineer. So
yeah, absolutely. When I say push my buttons, I'm saying you're making me have to work. That's all I meant.
So no problem. I appreciate it. You have a nice night.
You too. Take care.
Yep.
Oh. All right, there we go. That's the show for tonight. Thank you for everybody who called. We actually had some really good callers, some really good comments going on over in the comment section. I did bring this one up really quick. Jay Aguayo 56, he had called in there right before Korean 49er. He gives the $5 donation, and I really appreciate that. It says, thanks for always being level-headed and allowing your listeners to express their opinions. Stay blessed. Thank you very much, Jay. And absolutely, I love coming on, chatting with the faithful. I appreciate, like right now with Korean 49er, even if we disagree, we can have this is an environment that I enjoy because we can get in here, we can talk, we can express opinions back and forth, we can disagree, and it doesn't have to be like on Twitter where you can't see somebody's face, you don't know the expression that they're trying to give you, and it's just a lot more fun to not be stuck down to only 360 characters to express yourself. So thank everybody for joining. If you could please do me a favor, like it says on the front page right here, like and subscribe. If you could please subscribe to the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you could like the video as well, if you've been following along tonight, that'd be awesome. If you could also hit that little bell notification so that we, when we're live every time, that'd be great. And I'm going to sign off, but before I do, tomorrow night, 5:30, I will be back, joined by my normal co-host on Thursday night, Jesse Naylor, for the Hammer and Nail show. I believe it's going to be episode 49. We're closing in on a full 52 shows. I think we've been doing it for about a year now, but we had a couple weeks that were off. But we're Hammer and Nail show tomorrow night, right here, 5:30. Make sure you're here. It's going to be just based off of some of the topics that I've written down already. I think it's going to be a good one. Thanks again. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Take care.